Hello, everyone. Wave meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to a special update here on Storm Talk with an alert day out. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good for 12:31 here on this Wednesday. Obviously, the main topic is going to be how the next 4 to 5 hours are going to play out, as we've got a very humid setup in play, and then we've got the cold front moving in. There's a mix of good and bad news here for this afternoon. I will say the good news is that the timing of this on the end portion of it, it looks like it will be chopped to where we'll be able to focus this on just to about a 3 to 4 hour window as we head into this afternoon. That's the good thing. So we're not having to worry about this all the way until 11 o'clock or midnight or even after that. So that's one significant change that we've noticed in the past 8 to 10 hours of data and the radar trends we've noticed. Then the bad news is the majority of the focus then for the storm threat this afternoon is going to take place during the max heating of the day. So there will be plenty of fuel for these storms to work with as they begin to approach. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the current setup. We'll go through the elements that are as far as alerts that are out. We'll cover the current radar trends, and then I'll walk you through it hour by hour. Even though we can't technically use a lot of model data this afternoon for this close in event, I'll at least show you one idea I think that illustrates fairly well of how this will likely play out for this afternoon. And then hopefully at the end of that, hopefully, I had already answered most of your questions before we get there. If I haven't, though, keep in mind what you want to ask. And just as I do on the daily blog, I always say, make sure you get your pen, number 2 pencil, your crayon, whatever you need out, start making notes, and then come back around and ask, and hopefully I won't miss it. I do see your comments. They're flying up on social media sites, so Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you type there, they will show up right here. And they do fly in fast, so I apologize. And I can't see, I'm old. If you're on the streaming service, Roku, Fire Stick, or on the app, you will not see the comments as I refer to them. I will try to make sure to be as specific as I can, though, to the questions that are asked. I'll probably, in fact, I likely won't, because I have a limited time here today, be able to go through every single town, neighborhood, or street that we're expecting impacts. But I'm hoping, but when I show you the maps and explain the scenario, again, you'll be able to figure out exactly what we're talking about for today. All right, if you're ready, type 3. Type 3 if you're ready to go. Make sure everybody's set. Everyone's got their cup of tea, their coffee, their water. Everyone's set, prime, popcorn, whatever you need here, ready to go. And then I'll dive into all the details. All right, everyone good? Everyone is good. All right, a lot of 3s. Good, thank you guys. Let's go. Let's dive in. Let's start with the current setup outside, which is into downtown Louisville, which at times we've had a few hints of some sunshine across the area today. That has only just helped induce a stronger wind gust, which is going to still be an issue through the afternoon. But very ominous looking sky. It has that look, doesn't it? It just has that look that something's just a little little off here today. And if it wasn't that, it was the idea that we dropped only 76 for a low temperature this morning. We're 82 right now. We made it to 83 yesterday. We were talking about how there's that chance that today could be warmer than yesterday. I certainly think that's possible. We could easily get 84, 85 here. And certainly in central Kentucky, you guys could get into the lower 80s, already getting close to that level in some spots. Indiana, you will likely stay on the other side of 80 today because you've got a lot of cloud cover. I saw your comments already about cloud cover. You will stay on the cloudy side for the rest of the afternoon. So your warming is going to be held generally into the 70s, but for the rest of us, 80s are going to be very common in the area. Your dew point map, this is how we measure the point of moisture in the air, 61 degrees. Easiest way I can explain it, it's 82 outside. You go up, the air gets cooler as you go up. You go up until it hits 61 if you were able to climb that high. I wouldn't advise it, but if you're able to, when it gets to 61 in height as you go up, that's where the bottom of the cloud will form. So obviously, if the dew point is very close to the temperature, the bases of the clouds are very low to the ground. Two things. You can get damaging winds, and that's kind of a setup. You can also get an isolated tornado that has very little room then to work with. It can begin to touch down. And of course, if we end up with the dew point matching the temperature exactly, that typically means the cloud is on the ground, which we call that fog. So dew point is a good tool to tell us exactly how the bases of the clouds are going to play out. And with dew points in the 60s and in upper 60s to our west, that certainly tells us that these storms can get very tall in their height, and the damage wind potential then can get pushed down below the tree line. And that's where the damage wind threat starts to kick into play. Wind gusts, currently 30. We did hit 37 not too long ago. Frankfurt, 45 miles per hour right now. Wow. 30 into Bardstown and 22 in Paoli. I know it's another wind advisory day. I think it's our 11th or 12th wind advisory for the year. Tawana was looking at some of the data earlier yesterday, and I think right now Louisville is ranking for 2023 the fifth windiest as far as average wind speed, since we've had records on that since 1948. Shouldn't surprise anybody. I think everyone's been talking about that this year, and today is another wind advisory setup. But remember, this is separate from your thunderstorm potential on the wind side. That's why I want to make sure to talk about it first, so I didn't want it to get confused with the other wind setup that we're going to be facing with storms. Now here's the radar. For those of you into the knobs, Harrison County, all the way into Jefferson County, Indiana, you guys have had a fairly stormy morning, right? A lot of lightning, thunder. I think someone said, was it Marianne? I'm not sure it was now. Someone said a rolling thunder. That's pretty common in the setup. But these are not severe. They are tracking over the same spot. So unfortunately, I think for those of you around, say, Crawford County and Harrison County, into even Orange County, you will likely see more redevelopment here the next couple of hours that will keep feeding into that. So you're likely going to stay relatively stormy all the way through the afternoon. You're not going to have a ton of dry time. Meanwhile, notice the storms are not really popping into Kentucky at the moment. It's been relatively quiet, right? In fact, partly sunny in many spots. Reason for that is that lid we talked about. The lid on the pot of boiling water on the stove. Same thing for the atmosphere. It limits the height that the thunderstorms can grow. Most of these today have been roughly 25,000, 27,000 feet up. Typically severe, and it's not always the case, but roughly 40,000. When they get to about 40,000, usually I start to see warnings come out for that. These have not been able to get to that level. And usually it also indicates hail when you get to that level. But the lid, you see, is starting to erode away. It's holding on still into Kentucky, but for the rest of us, it's starting to fall apart, which is why we're now becoming a little more exposed to the damaging wind threat for storms for later on this afternoon. Now, on the flip side, opposite of the lid, is the fuel, the cape. And notice as we head into Indiana and West Kentucky, the brighter yellow, that shows it building in the area. And there's no cap there, so that's the reason why the severe threat is obviously going to be an issue to our west and then rolling in, approaching as we head into the afternoon. So those are just a couple of tools that we look at to kind of gauge where the atmosphere is in its own storyline. And it's evolving from a relatively stable setup this morning to certainly an unstable one for this afternoon. Meanwhile, to the north, we've been watching Indianapolis area. They had a couple of tornado warnings out just north of Indy. We did get some reports of damage, but I haven't heard any confirmation of a tornado in that area. Still some severe thunderstorm warnings northeast of Indy itself. And there are no warnings along the main line that we're watching because it's very messy. It looks like a traffic jam. And that's basically what's happening. Remember the cold front storyline here is that the front was approaching yesterday across the Midwest down to Arkansas. Last night, produced a tornado into southeast Missouri. I understand there's been several fatalities now in southeast Missouri because of that. The front is now slowing down. So what's happening is the storms that were going with the front basically are now ahead of the front. And they're kind of running out of steam. So there's a lot of collision going on here across Illinois and West Kentucky. So it's a very messy setup. If you look carefully, and I'll try to draw this because I know it's hard to see probably even on your phone. These are outflow boundaries, mini cold fronts, if you will, coming out of the storm. We call this a cold pooling effect. That's basically where the cold wind coming out of the storm just races ahead of the storm and then outpaces the storm's own speed. And that acts as a cold front to lift the air again, and a new line and new clusters of storms develop, and they will then become the lead. The line that's to the west of that will begin to either merge or fall apart. It's kind of a give and take kind of scenario here that's happening in Illinois. So as this gets better organized, the warning count should start to go back up again across Illinois, West Kentucky, and Southwest Indiana. It's going to take another hour or two, but it's getting there. As the line evolves, that's where we start to run into the damaging wind threat. The storyline last night was a piece of energy was separate, really ahead of the front. It moved across Arkansas, southeast Missouri, produced the tornado not far from Cape Girardeau, moved all the way to Indy, produced the tornado warning about an hour ago in that area. And now it's basically already merged with the line and you can't even see it anymore. It's kind of just congealed together. So that piece was one of the bigger issues that the Storm Prediction Center was most concerned about for the potential for strong tornadoes that could develop, was that piece of energy that moved rapidly on by. That's relatively past the area now. So now we're switching modes more into a straight line wind scenario as this line gets a little more organized and moves east. Now, a couple things to watch. As we enter this afternoon, sorry, I didn't hit the mic. As we enter this afternoon, there will be a couple areas of storms that will have what we call a bowing segment. They'll kind of bow outward and then go back into the line. When you see them bow outward, you hear us refer to the bowing segment often, or bow echo. That is where you're going to get some of those wind gusts that could exceed 60 miles per hour and a straight line wind threat. Now, the issue with that, you got to think about this. If you're putting a hand into a thing of water and you move it like you're in a swimming pool and you move your hand through the water, if you look carefully at the water flow at your fingertips and also near your wrist, there is a natural spinning that can happen on either side of that bow as it flies by. And when that happens, you can get little spins that happen, and that's where you get your isolated tornadoes that can form. We always call this the wiggles in the line. Anytime we see that, they're very brief. They can touch down. They can do damage, but they are not the kind of tornadoes that get on the ground and stay on the ground for hours on end like we've seen, certainly as of late, making the headlines. This is a different setup for that. So the strong tornado potential is not very high here, but a brief tornado setup, little spins, can certainly happen. And the Weather Service, they're the ones that issue the warnings, and it's always tough in this scenario. It's much more of a challenge than a supercell would be, because you have to kind of look for the signals that there's going to be a little bit of a spin when you see the bowing segment, and you've got to get that tornado warning out. Now, we don't know for sure if it could touch down, but if the sign is there, it's better to get everyone into the basement and safe spot, right, and take precautions. So you may get one or two tornado warnings this afternoon, and it may be because of that issue. It would be a lot worse if we had individual cells that were firing up and moving in. And I do think, at least for the next couple of hours, maybe some areas not far from Evansville may have to worry about that until they get a little more organized into the line. But the bowing segments are really what we're going to be watching as we head into this afternoon. All right, so here is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. This actually just updated long ago. They focused the enhanced risk, and look at that. It's our area. It's wave country today is the main highlight for the severe potential. All right, it's focused right along where the front is, and the best fuel wind fields, not as strong as they were actually this morning, but we didn't have we had the lid on the area, so we didn't have a crazy severe weather morning this morning because of that lid, thank goodness. But back in Missouri, they did not have that protection. You saw what happened there. Now we don't have the lid, but we don't have as strong of a wind field over us as we had this morning. So it's all about balancing out. So that's good, but still, it's just enough of an overlap. The damage and wind potential will be there. Breaking down these threats a bit more into wave country, we'll start with the hail setup. You know, yesterday it looked like the hail potential would be a little more of an issue if there were individualized cells. Now, with this being more of a line, I do think hail will be reported, but large hail is unlikely. Yesterday, there was tennis ball size hail across areas of Missouri pushing into Iowa. It was large hail. Wind chills were just busted out everywhere. But those are individual cells. Super cells where you got to watch for hail. in a line, your hail potential is not as high. Your damage wind threat, this is the main thing. Right across wave country, max heating of the day as that gets organized. And because the line itself is going to have bowing segments, timing is going to be a little weird. Indiana will probably go through the storm threat first, and then the line itself is likely going to be a little bit dragged across Kentucky. So there may be another 1 to 2 hour delay for those of you in Grayson County into Marion County before you see the storm. So we may be on the air 3 or 4 o'clock today talking about warnings moving into areas of Indiana. But then once you get into Kentucky, it may be another couple hours after that. So kind of keep that in mind. Timing is going to vary. It's not a straight up and down line like I-65. It's going to be a little more slanted as it moves through. So your damage and wind threat, that's the main issue. Tornado potential, it's there. I explained why, just for the brief spin-ups that can happen along those segments as it pushes through the area. All right, let me show you the one model. This is, it moved in fast, sorry. Let me try to back it up, actually. I want you guys to skip anything. There we go. All right, so here we go for this afternoon, 12:30. Here we go, 1:30, 2 o'clock. Here comes the line. We get to 3 o'clock. Or 5 o'clock, actually. Hold on, let me get to 4. Here's 4 o'clock this afternoon. That is where we're about 84 degrees in Louisville, lower 80s in central Kentucky. There's the line moving through. You see the cells across Indiana. I fully expect at this point we'll be at least into a warning mode. I don't know if we'll have warnings active, but we'll be in that zone. And I think it'll be as early as 3 o'clock we'll be entering that zone. 3 or 4 o'clock, Indiana likely will be first. Then we get into the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock hour. It'll be closer to the Ohio River, including Louisville. Those of you in central Kentucky, again, a little bit of a delay because of the angle of attack this line has. You'll then see the warnings kick in, more than likely, with damaging winds and, again, that brief tornado potential. What I don't like seeing here is whenever you get a little bit of a bend in the line. So right where the line is, I can't, plus you guys don't like my drawings anyway. I saw you all making fun of my drawings. Anyway, you see the line as it moves down into about, say, Meade County and then goes a little more south. Right at that little bend, that's where you can get, in some cases, some of your brief rotation that can form there. All right, line moves through, and here we are at 8:30, and we are likely out of the zone for severe weather. And we can relax, and then we'll deal with the rain that will continue. In fact, the rain is likely going to last all the way through tomorrow, especially along and south of the river. This front stalls and gets stuck in the area. So it's going to be a pretty rainy setup for a while. This is not one of those deals where the storms hit and rain's over, sun comes out, whatever. We can enjoy after the front. No, this one's going to be a long, dragged out setup, unfortunately. But the severe threat is only just as it approaches. That's good. Here is the last slide I've got, and then I'll get to your questions. I focus the bars a little more closer to, you don't see 3 o'clock, but it's roughly 3 to about 8 to 9 in that zone. And again, that's accounting for the severe potential that will start into Indiana first, the first part of this, 3 to 4 o'clock, Louisville, 5 to 6 o'clock, and then central Kentucky, probably in more in the 6:30 to 7, maybe even 8 o'clock hour. And then at that point, we should have all of our 30 counties out to the other side of the front, and it's just the general rain that will linger through the night. Whew. There you go. Now I've talked enough. You guys talk. What questions can I ask? I'll try to go all the way up to the beginning to get to some of them there. I got a feeling those are probably ones I've already tried to ask. Stacy, what are they saying? Well, storms. Storms are on the way. Caleb, risk for tornado in Breckenridge County. It's not a high risk anywhere for tornadoes, but everyone has a chance at it. Again, it's only going to be in the wiggles of the line itself. All right. Everyone else seems good. A lot of 3s. Wait a minute. Donna put a 4 earlier. What's a 4? I'm a little concerned, Donna. Rebecca, that's a good question. It's been raining all morning into Indiana, southern Indiana. Will that limit the risk? It will to an extent. You're still into the 70s and you still have a high dew point. So it'd be different if you were in the 50s. Still being in the 70s is still enough of a juice there for Indiana that I do think the damage and wind potential is at least there. But yeah, you're right. It's not, it has been at least somewhat tapered, but unfortunately, you're still going to be able to warm even with a cloudy sky because the flow is so strong coming in from the south, hence all the gusty winds we got in the area today. Central Kentucky is going to get warmer. I do think the damage and wind threat may be a little more of an issue for central Kentucky. So I know the tornado watch doesn't go much worse to the south of Bullitt County at the moment. The E-Town is in it. But at the moment, I can't see why there would be another watch for Central Kentucky that's not under 1 right now. That would be issued later, but that's not my call. I can just give you all just the thought process of what we're seeing on our end. What is the height of the cloud deck around Louisville? That is a good question. I can actually look up the specific number for you. Please stand by, and I'll look it up. We haven't seen them too low for this morning. And of course, Louisville, we've been staring down most of the cloud cover across areas of southern Indiana for most of the morning hours. Right now, our cloud ceiling, the cloud deck, is 8,000 feet. To give you an idea, the buildings in downtown Louisville, I believe, are about 700 feet. So this is 8,000. So they're pretty high up. Once you get to about 1,000 feet, you really got to watch the radar trends carefully. And we're above that still into Louisville. Hope that helps answer your question there. Good question. Debbie, are we ever going to have a nice sunny 70s day without the risk of being blown away by wind? Hey, we had yesterday. I mean, it was a little windy. True. But it wasn't a bad setup yesterday. It really wasn't. We got to 83 yesterday without a lot of craziness. That's good. Let's see. Oh, Debbie, you have another one. I was going to ask for any more wintry weather coming our way. No, it's yeah. Look, I haven't talked about that much, but look, it's sad the way the winter's been for snow lovers. But I think it's pretty much off the mark now, just because the Southeast Ridge is becoming such a dominant factor, and I just don't see that surrendering anytime soon. Lauren, I enjoy your drawings. Oh, thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. They even make fun of me here. They do, especially Kevin. He's always picking on me. All right, let's see. Du Bois County, you guys are actually going to be one of the first to see it. So you probably got about an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and they'll be approaching you in Du Bois County. A lot of questions about specific spots. And again, I can't really get to exact timing because this is constantly evolving. But I think everyone's got the gist on this, right? I think everyone's got the idea. Actually, let me ask. Type 5, which I love when I do that. Type 5, if you're cool, if you understand what's going on, you've got a plan in place, you feel okay, you've talked to your family, you're at work, you've talked to coworkers. Type 5, everything's cool. And if not, let me know why it's not, and I'll see if I can try to answer. We'll try it that way. Krista, why is a tornado watch issued instead of a severe thunderstorm watch if the main concern is damaging winds? That's always a very good question. And it's one of those issues that damaging wind threat, if it's going to be a setup where they're going to be more common, the reports will be then tornado reports in a dramatic fashion, or the damaging wind threat is going to be 4 or 5 counties long of hurricane force straight on winds. They tend to go more for a severe thunderstorm watch or even a more intense wording. In this case, it's a mix of the two ideas that are on the threat table, and I think it's just easier just to say tornado watch, because if you are preparing for a tornado, the logic in that is that you're obviously going to be prepared for any other severe weather element, because tornadoes just carry a different weight to them on reaction. So I think it's more about messaging as well as expectations, because I do think there will be at least a tornado warning potential on this. All right, a lot of fives. James, you're 2. Why are you 2, James? Let me know. A lot of fives. Troy, hope you're doing. I hadn't talked to you in a long time. Let's see. Troy, yeah, there's very little wind shift with height. Very true. We call this the unidirectional type of shear. In other words, to get all not too technical, but the wind field is roughly southwest here at the ground, and it's a strong west-southwest flow as you go up several thousand feet. And that is not exactly a strong indicator. You're going to get a lot of tornado potential, especially in the lower layers of the atmosphere. But when you get a bowing segment involved in a squall line, that is a different ball game, because you're looking at an environment that's favorable for general tornadoes to pop. But now you're dealing with a squall line that's going to influence the wind fields because of how a general thunderstorm, especially with straight line winds, how it interacts with its cell right next to its buddy. That creates a different small scale environment where you can change the wind fields up, and that's where you get rotation. But that's also why the tornado potential is limited. It doesn't last very long. It only takes advantage of that moment to react, to get a spin, and then it usually just irons itself back out again. So that's the reason why the tornado potential is there, just for short-term duration events. not for a widespread tornado outbreak. So a good question, but hopefully that answers your question on that one, but it's a good one. So Becky, Lurie won't have a bow echo. I don't know who will and who won't. These storms, when it comes to bow echoes, they have a mind of their own. Once we see them forming, it's fairly easy to start talking about it, and the Weather Service can start issuing the warnings, bam, on the radar. And usually the polygons will be fairly long in length to give a much of a heads up idea, because bow echoes are a little easier to track. So I do think that's something we'll see, but not all areas will see it. Some areas, if you don't have that, you're going to have a wall of wind and, gusty winds like we got generally now. Gusty winds, very heavy rain and lightning, and you may not even get a warning. I fully expect there will be many of you watching that will not have a warning for your specific location. But I do think there will be some warnings in the area. I just don't know which part of the line yet is going to take over the show. We just have to prepare, right? Be prepared just in case. And let's hope this is a relatively tame issue. It already has somewhat improved from yesterday, right? Because now we're talking about more of a linear setup. We are dealing with much more of a cutoff time on the setup instead of multiple rounds. We're mainly dealing with one round of heavy storms moving through the area. So there is some improvement already that's happening. I hope it will continue. Unfortunately, now that we're just hours away from it and we're in the 80s and it's humid outside, the sun is out in central Kentucky, yeah, it's unlikely that we're going to escape without any warnings. It's just too prime now for that to avoid it. All right, guys, I'm going to stop here for now. If you just now clicked, you're like, oh, what in the world is he even talking about? As soon as I end this video on Facebook, especially, and on Twitter, it will replay again. So you can rewatch it and fast forward to where we went in my ramble. Go to your favorite drawing, whatever the case is. But you can do that as soon as I'm done. I will be back on again on Wave on the TV side coming up at about 1:50 this afternoon. I'll be on again at about 2:30. We'll be on at 3, 3:30, 3:45, 4 o'clock. We're going to be on. We're going to be on. So don't worry. Make sure to watch the Wave Weather channel. It's 24 hours on Roku and Fire Stick and on the app. When we're not active, the channel will go back to its weather channel look, and the maps are constantly updated. The watches will be there, the severe weather outlooks, the radar trends, all that will constantly be in rotation. So keep an eye on it. And on alert days, we do have it set to get to more specifics on impacts and not so much of the other stuff that has nothing to do with what's happening today on that map. So again, the 24-hour weather channel, I highly encourage you guys to download it. It is a great thing to have. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys taking care of each other, especially in the community on days like today. Communicate with your families. And you know what? We may get lucky and get through this just fine, but we need to be prepared just in case as we head into this afternoon. All right. Stay close. We'll keep an eye on it.